Ladies and gentlemen, Ria Yoshida is about to come on, and we're going to be doing some healing. We're going to be doing some deep diving. We're going to be opening up layers and conversations that could potentially trigger you. So if you're someone who is like super frail, I recommend staying tuned to this conversation because it's in those triggers that we're able to evolve and grow. But if it's something that, sex, intimacy, swear words, if that is something that is a complete turnoff for you, then you probably want to find another episode. Otherwise, stay tuned. This is going to be a freaking powerful interview, and it's going to be a lot of fun, definitely, and real raw and juicy. So definitely stay tuned. Before we dive into it, though, I just really want to say thank you for choosing to be your greatest possible self, taking one step at a time, choosing to be in self-exploration, curiosity about you, your body, life, the world, why we believe the things that we do, and just being willing to take a look at that and with a beautiful observer mind. And thank you for being here. I'm going to introduce Ria in just a sec. Before that, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen if you want to take notes. There's probably going to be some experiential stuff in this as well, which is going to be a blast. So definitely stick around through this interview, especially if you get triggered, especially if there's stuff that's like awkward or weird or it's like, I don't know. Stick around because I think that there's so much wisdom and opportunity for self-discovery, self-awareness in that experience, in sifting and sorting through whatever comes up. Okay, so Ria Yoshida is an author and international sex coach. Through her online coaching programs and live events, she's helped CEOs and business leaders around the world 10x their sex lives and intimate relationships. She is faculty at the International School of Temple Arts and is a contributing author for the anthology Shamans, True Stories of Sacred Sexuality and Awakening. Ria was born and raised in Japan to a Japanese Buddhist father and a Jewish American mother. She has straddled multiple worlds and dimensions from a young age and is committed to world peace, one happy genital at a time. And that is just the tip of the iceberg with this beautiful powerhouse woman. Ria, are you ready to rock the house?
Let's do this.
Or rock the bed, like whatever. So whatever the case is, it's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you for being here. And, I told you in the pre-interview, like I wanted to create healing, right? I want to create some healing for people who may have had traumas, may have had things that they don't even know, blind spots, things that they've picked up over the years. So my intention is that we create some sacred space, so that people could come into, both who are here present, listening consciously, whether it's live or replay, as well as beyond this, beyond and out into the world for people who are needing healing, who are their soul is ready for it, that this message, this energy, this frequency reaches them and makes a difference for them. So I want people to get to know you. I also want to go through some processes during this hour, and just anything else, like it's totally open. We can go wherever the flow goes. Okay.
Sounds amazing.
Rocking. So let's start off. We'll do the theme of today, your message to millions. We'll just hear your perspective about that. What does that mean to you, Ria?
Well, it really is the big question. It's how do we expect ourselves to be free when we're not sexually free, when we're not sexually liberated? And I don't know about you, but most of us, mom and dad had sex. That's how we're here. It's like,
they may not have admitted that they did, but
yes. And right. Obviously, I am familiar with the birth world, and not everyone can be fortunate enough to get pregnant on their first try during sex. And of course, total respect to beloveds who are through science, right? So we have modern day technology that has supported human health and reproductive health and fertility. So totally honoring that. And for the rest of us, I don't know what the statistics are, like 90-something%, mom and dad had sex, and this is how we're here, right? And so there's the science, obviously, of sperm and the egg meet, and then there's like a little mini Big Bang that happens in the uterus. And it's really more than that, right? It's more than just the physical scientific combination, but that there's a form of energy. It's like, we call it sexual energy, but what it really is it's life force energy. It's an energy that can create life. So we're working with something that's extraordinarily powerful. And because it's so powerful, because it can be such a vortex,
Mm.
if we look at the current climate of how we as a society, as a globe, relate to sexuality,
Mm.
it's not that great,
Mm.
right?
Right.
We're terrified of this thing.
It's true.
And we have pushed it into the shadow.
Mm.
And by shadow, I mean it's out of sight. We're
Mm.
like, you know what? We don't want to deal with that. We're just going to push it to the side. We're going to suppress it, oppress it, repress it. And we're just not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And essentially because, when we look at the pendulum swinging of the current culture, whether it's, the pickup artistry movement or the Me Too movement,
Mm-hmm.
or, women's rights, just everything that's happened over the course of history, we weren't working with this energy in a responsible and mature way.
Mm. And
And
it's
so,
like the life force energy, the creation energy, and especially the physical body parts, boobs, butt, vagina,
yes,
penis, pussy, like all
yes,
these words have become like the energy associated with them has been so like skewed in like
yes.
an unhealthy way.
Yeah. It's derogatory, right?
Yeah.
If someone calls you a dick, it's like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
or God forbid you're an asshole,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Or don't be such a pussy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how did this happen? You
Wow.
know,
Wow.
it's so ironic,
Yeah. It's
and yet we accept it.
Yeah, it's like hidden in plain sight. It's like these such beautiful, magical aspects or
Mm.
anatomy that also is so deeply spiritual as well. Like it's right here, but because of whatever society says and the programming there, it just totally like we stay away from the power that is there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, really, this is an invitation. It's an
Mm.
opportunity to just consider, what if our genitals are sacred?
Mm.
And what if it's actually the source to reconnecting to something much, much deeper that we have disconnected from?
Mm. So you are a sex coach, and I mentioned a little
Yes.
bit about that in your intro, but just in your own words, in addition to bringing this sacred conversation about genitals to the world, is there anything else you want our audience to know about what you stand for with your
Mm,
clients and
mm.
and just to get us knowing you more?
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. So I love working with business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, other coaches, healers, and people who have a lot of influence in the world.
Mm.
So if we really think about politicians, CEOs, people who are making massive decisions and choices, there's like 1% of people in the world who are making decisions that the 98% are being affected by.
Yeah.
What if these 1% of leaders made decisions from a place of total sexual satisfaction?
Mm.
What if they're like skipping down the street with a grin and a smile on their face and they're so elated
Yeah.
because they had the best sex ever with their beloved, or they're so
Mm.
connected and they feel juicy with their genitals, with their body,
Yeah.
and they're making decisions and choices from a place of abundance
Mm.
rather than a place of just the head cut off from the rest of the body, rather than a place of scarcity or a lack of,
Mm.
right? To maybe prove something. So this is why I like working with leaders and business owners to really support a holistic way of all the hard work that they do. The
Mm.
truth is, I can't do that job. I don't want to do that job. I don't want to wear a tight pantsuit and be stuck in a hotel conference room, freezing in the AC and having to debate, percentages and numbers all day,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's not my specialty. I want these leaders to feel nourished and feel supported
Mm.
in the jobs that they do. And this is part of the reason why I'm so motivated to support sex coaching, right? I almost think of it as like modern day geisha,
Mm.
or like a modern day legal courtesan,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like if we really look at the temple arts, there's ancient historic references of how there were priestesses, women who would be in temples where the men who came back from war would come and get nourishment and sexual healing from before they went home to their families and their wives.
Wow. Wow.
And these temple arts exist in all cultures throughout the world. You know, I just mentioned being a geisha, but in Japanese culture, my father's Japanese, it's a art form, it's a practice. So sensuality as medicine, sexuality as medicine, when used with respect and honor.
Yeah, I think I was reading some by Robert Greene. I don't know which book it was, like some, I don't know, one of them. And he was talking about courtesans and how like that was a refined, dignified position. And they had to be smart. They had to like be brilliant and witty and like intelligent to be successful for that, you know, position, to be of value, most value, and add, you know, the most like healing and be there for whoever their companions were. You know, I thought that was super interesting.
Yes, absolutely. And so we've lost touch with that art form, with that work, you know, instead, just over the course of history, we've just become disconnected. And a lot of it has to do with, because it's so powerful, being able to control female sexuality is the number one way to be able to control the population.
Wow. Wow. Is it female sexuality? Is it also feminine energy, like dominating the feminine energy, like out of men? Is that, I feel like that's been done as well, right?
It's all related because we can't really exist without the other.
Right.
And you know, so for example, like 400 years ago, I would have been burned at the stake and be called a witch, right?
Wow.
And it's like, but here's the catch though. You can burn the witches, but they'll keep getting born. So what do you do if they keep getting born? You teach them shame.
Wow.
And you teach them shame, and then shame gets carried on generation through generation through generation.
Damn.
And now we exist in a world where being called a genital body part is an insult. And that's the norm.
Yeah. So I want to go into this conversation of healing, and we're like inviting people, everyone who's still here is like, okay, I'm open to reconsidering, to opening up what is my definition, unpacking that, and like really what is my relationship with my genitals. Where do we go from here, Ria?
Perfect. Beautiful. Well, so part of the work that I do is something called becoming a pussy whisperer, right? And the way it was inspired is regardless of how you came into the world, it's that we're all invited to be born through this portal, right? That the pussy or the vulva or the vagina, the canal, it's representative in so many pieces of being birthed into this world. I mean, it is like a miracle. It's like, how did this even happen?
Yep.
It's wild. So it's the portal in which we enter this world as humans, right? Whether you've come through a C-section or not, like all respect for it, but it's that is what was meant for the pussy, right? It's a birth canal coming out. And in order for a woman to be impregnated, you know, she allows the lingam or the cock or the penis in to the yoni. So it's this exchange of life. It's this portal, this mystery into the other side of being a human, having a human experience.
Wow.
And after having come out of a pussy, a lot of us are trying to get back in one.
Yep. Yep.
And you know, the pussy it's mysterious, right? Whereas like the cock exists outside of the body. You can immediately see when a cock is aroused, right? In working with a lot of men, the story behind the scenes for men is that they often feel betrayed by their own body because they'll get an erection in places that it's not allowed, right?
Wow.
And basically not allowed by like anywhere outside the bedroom, it's not allowed, right? When it's involuntary most of the time. It's just the body responding. And so whereas with a woman, you know, with the pussy, of course, the pussy also has tissue in it that can be engorged and can swell and be fuller, but you can't really see it with the eye.
Right.
So a woman's turn on or a pussy owner's turn on is much more invisible and mysterious. And so the question I've been asking as a sex coach and as a very bisexual woman, I'm both romantically and sexually interested in both men and women. It's like, who do I get to be invited into a pussy? And what is this relationship with the feminine? You know, it's the feminine both from a sexual standpoint all the way to like the mother and the mother energy. And that a healthy mother is a sexual woman.
What is the distinction there that like most mothers think that, okay, I've had my kids, like it's time to turn off fantasies, desires, the need or want for arousal, and just focus on raising kids, and that's totally BS, right?
Absolutely. And it has a lot to do with the way in which we're living, the fact that we're so isolated, right? So we all live in this like nuclear family unit, whereas, you know, if we look at tribal days or village days, you know, we live together in pods, in groups. Some pods or some villages didn't know who the father was. And so it's almost like agriculture kind of bit us in the ass. It did so many good things. And it also said, okay, well, if I'm going to produce X number of food, I want to know which mouths I'm feeding.
Yeah. Wow.
And so from there, it started turning into property. And women started being treated as property. And, you know, marriage existed as a business deal. Like my family has rice, your family has corn. For our offsprings to survive, we're going to put our, you know, children together. I'll give you my daughter, you give me your corn. And so we just got away from a communal way of living. And, you know, I don't think it's right or wrong. It's neither, right? It's just the evolution of where we've come from, and so much good has come out of it as well. And we're light years ahead from where we used to be. So I'm super, super grateful to the ancestors that have brought us here. And we get to step into an even greater possibility. And part of that is learning how to integrate and how to find congruence with what is so normal and natural. Every single human is a sexual being. And it has nothing to do with perversion or being sexual with each other. It's about owning sexuality as yours. It's yours. You get to be a sexual being. And you can be completely celibate. And so, you know, the way one of my mentors has framed it, which was really powerful, is healthy celibacy is when you run sexual energy with yourself. So sexual energy is life force energy. If you look in nature, like all the birds chirping, all the bugs bugging, right? What they're really saying is like, hey, want to fuck now? What about now? Can we fuck now? What about later? How about now? Do you want to fuck me now? I think we should go have sex now. Like that's nature singing to itself. That's all the bird calls. That's like all the animal calls.
Right.
You know, like the wind sensually brushing through the leaves, just the feel of the earth, the worms like worming themselves through the earth. Just like the earth is constantly making love to itself.
Wow.
It's so natural and so normal. And it's humans who have turned it into this thing.
So I am excited to dive in, as I know people are as well, to like really start to transform that, right? We have this context. So Ria, what can we do to like really heal?
Beautiful. So what I would say right away is we don't want to make love or add pleasure onto a foundation that's got a lot of shame and stuff in it, right? Like you can't really add to something that's already full. We can't pour more water into a cup that's already overflowing with liquid in it, right? So a lot of this has to do with unlearning. And so part of unlearning is, you know, my recommendation is to do like a brain dump. I mean, I'm sure this is like a powerful tool for any mindset coach, right? Like let's first clear the mind and clear the space in order to be able to nourish it with what we do want to believe in. So my suggestion is to definitely journal. I would recommend typing instead of writing, because sometimes because it's a brain dump,
Yeah.
we just want to get it out.
Yep.
So when the mind is running really quickly, we can think faster than we can write.
Right.
So it's actually the opposite of a lot of journaling, which is often recommended to write. But
Right.
I would say to just get clear, just like type it out real quick. Open up a Google Doc or an Evernote or a notepad and just dump everything that you find shameful around sexuality, around your body, around your genitals. You know, what are the curse words, or what are things that you've just not allowed yourself to express out loud? So we want to do a clearing. And so that's a mental clearing. And then what I would recommend is to do a heart clearing. So go into a meditation to really close your eyes and just like place a hand on your heart and just ask your heart, like, hey, how's it going? And, you know, how do you feel around sex? How do you feel around your body? And what happens in your heart when it comes to hearing certain curse words or genitals or body parts? What happens in the heart when you've had different sexual experiences? And really checking in here. And one of the interesting things about the heart is it's not where emotion lives. The heart is about connection. And, you know, the heart, just to simplify it so that we can understand it in our minds, the heart really has two settings. It's either open or closed. And the heart has multiple chambers. So it could be open in the front chamber, but then the back chamber could be closed.
Wow.
And so it's got some layers in the heart.
Yeah. Damn.
And then the next part is checking in with the gut, with the belly. And this is where emotion lives. So as humans, you know, we walk upright and we wear clothes and we say big words that are very expensive. But we're animals, you know. We've forgotten this animal instinct, and we've almost shamed the animal. But the gut and the belly is where emotion lives. It's where we not only do we digest food, but we digest emotions here. So it's like, you know, trust your gut, or like, what does your instinct say? So this is the place that it really lives. And so the invitation here is again to close the eyes and do a meditation and just say like, hey, what's in here now? And even if it might feel numbness is an emotion. Numbness is what happens when there's so much to feel that the body then copes by creating the emotion of numb.
Wow.
Because it's so overwhelming. And so we really want to tap into the belly and really feel it and be with it. Yeah. And then go ahead.
I was gonna say that's so important. I feel like we're addressing the different layers and levels of like mentally, hey, what are the words conceptually with language? How do we relate to these things? And then in like the heart, like really feeling into that and saying, well, how do I feel about these things that I was just, you know, labeling or data dumping out, right? Like penis, vagina, pussy, whatever it might be, like heart, what do you feel? And then like spending time with that. And for everyone who's listening right now, like really taking time for yourself to do that, you know, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever you choose, but like really being with that, to see what comes up and to allow it to come through, as well as our gut. And I think a lot of us have like suppressed inner child aspects of us. And I think for me, it's like I've been in personal development so much that, okay, yeah, we're going to talk to the inner child, but there's also, what are the conversations today that I'm unwilling to go into, or people are unwilling to go into, that the inner child also has not been able to express itself around, that we may not have consciously addressed or said, oh, I want to talk about sex, or body parts, genitals, things like that. And like we were talking about on our pre-interview, nothing that consciously may have happened that triggers us to say, there wasn't any physical abuse, sexual abuse, or anything like that, but like there's still a relationship that we have with it today, as well as probably that inner child has stored since 6, 8, 10 years old, when those really started getting formed, those definitions like of what does sex mean and what do these body parts mean started getting formed.
Yes, it's so informative for the rest of our lives when we're these like adorable little dumplings, like fresh in the world, like raw dough. We haven't been cooked yet, and we're so impressionable. Like life adds so much seasoning to the rawness of being, a child. And even if you had the most perfect childhood, right? Like your parents loved you, you got all your needs met, and everything was great, you still live in a world where there's other people who are suffering. And you still live in a world where there's other people experiencing violence, sexual assault, shame. Like we're still born into a world that has sex shame and we're not free, right? So even if we ourselves have had a perfect childhood, we're still tapped into a collective energy that we can now clearly see how connected we really are. During COVID-19, these times, we can see like this thing started and just spread all over the globe in no time. Like that's how connected we really are. Yeah.
So those three dimensions and aspects of ourselves, Ria, I think is like super, super important to just take an inventory and get connected with and start to build a conversation with, start to build a relationship with it, right? Because it's like we have a relationship with body parts, with, the shame, with the emotions, but also like where it's stored and how we relate to it in each of these centers, each of these processing, like centers, so to speak. Yeah.
And let's not forget the most important center to add, which is the genitals. Let's add the genitals to this. So important.
Yes.
So go ahead, and if you're comfortable, just place a hand on your genitals right now. And just and notice what that does. Notice the thoughts that come up. Notice how gay that is. And just like, whoa, this is allowed. And everyone who's like watching the replay or listening right now is like, wow, that's what they're doing right now. And they're too. But what if like this is yours? Like it's your sacred altar between your legs. This is where you get to feel pleasure. And it's such a powerful source. And so just like, these poor genitals are like shoved in a dark, tight place all day long, and we just sit on them. Like I've had clients where they've shared with me the only times they're ever naked is either during sex or when they're showering. They sleep with clothes on. And for me, I'm like, really? People do that? I'm not trying to shame anyone who loves their pajamas. That's awesome. I will not yuck your yum. That's awesome.
So good. I had a couple on a couple weeks ago, and they said how like one of the secrets to like having sex every day and like having a thriving relationship is sleeping naked together in bed, because it creates so much more intimacy, right? Because like there's just no more like things between you, especially in such a intimate place in bed. It's like, well, not just when we're having sex, but like when we're sleeping and when we're cuddling, when like there's may not necessarily be sexually aroused, but just to be vulnerable and the most skin to skin contact and connected with people. And I think that would probably I like imagine that would probably remove the sex shame around sexual like stimulation just by being naked as well, which I think a lot of society says because someone's naked, it is sexual, you know? And I think that's a big part of like a challenge, you know, the shame that's there
Yes.
around that.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely, when it's so funny, it's like we created these things called clothes.
Yep.
Like we created the socialization and the culture that like, oh no, you know, like it's illegal to be topless in certain states still, or to have your genitals out, right?
Yep.
And it's like, but we all have them. Like we're all naked under our clothes. And yet that's not normal anymore. And it has a lot to do with, you know, just like, you know, us having that culture, and then that culture teaching parents to then teach the children, right? And just growing up in that. So it's definitely true. It's like a naked body doesn't mean it's a sexual body. And, you know, sexuality it's an energy. It's definitely a state. And something I really love, something Esther Perel has said is, sex isn't something you do, but it's a place you go.
Wow.
Which I really
dive more into that. I want to understand that philosophy.
Yes, I love it. So sex, you know, like just like we talked about, you know, the sperm and the egg, right? Like that's just the biology and the science that happens. I mean, it's not just, it's pretty miraculous. That thing is like incredible. You're like, how did this even happen? And, you know, sex is not just like penis and vagina, right? It's not just like between a man and a woman. But I mean, like some of my sexual experiences with women have almost been rougher and way more intense than with men.
Wow.
It's not just like body parts and what these body parts do to each other or what we do with each other, because you can go through the motions and it can look really hot and it can look really sexy, but it may not feel sexy.
Wow.
And you might be totally in another place. You might be planning your day tomorrow. You might be rehashing, you know, a conversation you had on the phone with your mom. Like,
wow.
You might be going through like a grocery list in your head, or, you know, oh, did I put the laundry in the dryer? You know, like, or did I turn the oven off? I mean, you can be somewhere else completely.
Yes, right.
But look like you're there, go through the motions, but you're not there. You're not present. So I'm sure you talk a lot about presence with in mindset, in business coaching, you know, your presence as a leader to command an organization or to command the boardroom. You know, you need presence. You need to be sharp. You need to be on there, and also empathize, because you're working with people. Like, what does it mean to be your greatest self? You know, your greatest self isn't just in the head, in the mind. No. Your greatest self is actually between your legs.
I love it. You know, I've heard from someone who like taught me to like expand my presence and my power from my cock, right?
Yes.
Like to go from there first, and then like feel it fill the room, like my energy, like go from there. I'm curious, is that something that you like? What's your experience around that, and
love
as well
it.
with the pussy? Like, how does that work?
Yes, love it. It's amazing. I've been invited into the United Nations in the UN to play a role as a priestess in the back of the room.
Wow.
During very intense negotiations.
Wow.
And
damn.
Yes.
Damn.
And so as a priestess, what I'm doing is I'm channeling my womb. I'm in my pussy and I'm breathing from my pussy. And with my mind's eye, because we now know that the brain cannot tell the difference between reality and imagination.
Right.
And creativity is innovation, right? And thought is tangible. Thought has a wavelength. It has a like magnetic field to it.
Yes.
And resonance to it. So yes, I've been in rooms where very important decisions have been made, where I got to breathe from my pussy and pump my pussy internally, and no one can tell that I'm doing this, but
Right.
I'm bringing that sexual energy, that healing, that priestess energy into a room
Wow. I
and
know I
holding
read
it as a
in your
temple.
intro about being a shaman. Like
Yes.
how does that type of work integrate with sex coaching for you?
Beautiful. So the best way I've heard two definitions of
Hmm.
shamanism and shaman, which would be really fun. One of those definitions is a shaman eats shit and shits light.
Damn. Wow. That's intense. Intense metaphor.
It's great. Yes.
Yes.
And then the second definition is a shaman is someone who can traverse dimensions
Mm.
and bring knowledge and information from another dimension into this dimension.
Wow.
So it's someone who can meditate and go into a metaphysical state and download codes
Yeah.
that would be supportive and useful, right?
Wow.
So we might call it inspiration. We might call it, a muse.
Mm.
We might call it getting a hit or an idea, right? Like an idea is accepted by modern day culture.
Right.
But if you say shaman, they're like, whoa, 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 what's
Right.
happening here?
Right. Or I just got a download. It's like, what?
Right.
The
Yeah.
modern society, like, you got a what?
Yes. Yes.
Where did this come from? Some
Yes.
other dimension? Are you high?
Yeah.
Are you like on something?
Exactly. But if you said, hey, I have an idea,
Right.
it's like, oh, cool, you have an
Sure.
idea. That's
Yeah.
acceptable. But you're
Wow.
like, I got to download. And you're like, whoa now. Yes.
Wow.
So being shamanic, it's an edgy term. It is quite controversial. There is different cultures across the world that have very, very deep practices around shamanism.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I would like to bring into this conversation is consider where every single human is a shaman. We're all shamans.
Yes.
That, yes, you can go through training, and I have so much respect and honor for the different multidisciplinary practices across different cultures and the world, right? There's like Japanese shamans, there's Peruvian shamans, there's shamans in Africa from different tribes. There's so much, right? And what if every single one of us can access our own inner shaman?
Yeah.
In our
Because
own world.
it's using that definition of just accessing information from different dimensions and places, and like all we have to do is like close our eyes and tap into the energy of, hey, what would my 10-year self say? Like what wisdom would that person give me? It's like, boom, you're already being a freaking shaman. Like just
Yes.
like unlimiting yourself from the human experience in this present moment and tapping into like higher consciousness, higher places of wisdom across all times and spaces.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gold.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about downloads, since we're on the topic, and downloads into our genitals. I'm curious, is there anything around that you've experienced? I have no idea. I just figured I'd like throw it out there.
Absolutely. I've had, so my I've dabbled in a lot of psychedelics, right? Plant medicine, and working with sexual energy. It's like I'm tripping. It's as if I'm on psychedelics.
Wow.
And I hadn't taken any substances. But, I'm sure that there is DMT, natural organic DMT, being released in my brain, right? So there's definitely like a science to it. Mm-hmm. And, when we're climaxing or when we're orgasming, it's like the French word for orgasm. The translation means like a little death, right?
Wow.
And the little death is because our ego completely dies.
Wow.
In those moments,
because
so
we unify. Like, is it unification of the energy, or like what is orgasm? Because like it can be done on one, like individually as well as with a partner, right?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, like like when you sneeze, you can't not close your eyes.
Right.
It's just like it's a physical response to sneezing, right? So when you're orgasming, like anywhere from 1 second to 3 seconds, you're not yourself.
Wow.
You have an ego death.
Wow.
Like, and that is so euphoric. Because the personality, the ego, if you will, but that's like a heavy term. It doesn't really create a visceral reaction. But it's your sense of self. Your sense of self dissolves. And in that dissolving, you are free. It's a taste of liberation. Wow. And there are monks and meditators in the world, yogis, who have been able to access that state in meditation. And actually that feeling of pure pleasure, pure bliss, pure liberation, losing your sense of self, being in an orgasmic state is really spiritual. Spiritual awakening. It's a taste of God, of being one with the universe. And so the download connected to your genitals, what I would say is we have focused our attention on the genitals because it's such a like a hot spot, like a nerve ending hot spot. But with practice, with conscious awareness, we can actually breathe and allow that pleasure and that energy to travel up and down the rest of the body.
And that's to the energy that is generated from it, like when we're choosing to be aroused, when we're choosing to experience pleasure, typically that hot spot with all the nerve endings, we'd be like, oh, I'm horny, I'm sexually aroused, so let's focus our consciousness on our genitals. And so that's where the focus is placed, but we can spread that throughout our body.
Yes, correct. Yes. We can breathe in the pleasure that's focused in the genitals, and just like with your mind's eye, spread it up the spine, into the belly. It can even, like, maybe if you have like a sore hip, you can bring that sexual energy into that hip.
Wow.
Or maybe, I like to rock climb, so I've sprained multiple things and I've gotten like bruises everywhere, right? But I can take that sexual energy and like with my mind's eye mentally bring it into a sore spot in my body and use sexual energy as healing.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about porn, because I think that's a that and sex and shame. Oh my gosh, it is a whirlwind. What do you feel our audience should know about porn, and like, what is our greatest possible self and that relationship with porn and being healthy and our genitals and loving ourself and our body? Tell us more, Ria.
Yes, I love talking about this. So I think we even mentioned it on the pre-interview, but it's like, hey, if you go to a movie, like the latest Marvel film, which I love all the Marvel characters and DC characters, they're amazing. Or you go and watch like the latest Fast and the Furious or James Bond or any action film, right? You don't come out of the theater and start gunning it at like 200 miles an hour on the highway and looking for aliens to shoot. We don't do this because we know it's a movie, right? Made for entertainment. It's the same thing with porn. Porn stars are really sexy paid actors. There's it's made for entertainment. And like, I know a lot of porn stars personally. They're dear friends, and there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. So much, like it's just not how people have sex, right? I think porn is great so long as the people watching it are aware that it is not real life, and it's going to create a hormonal response in the body that, like, neurons that fire together wire together, right? So if you're self-pleasuring, which is already a really powerful practice, and you're connecting it to porn, then you're wiring your brain to only get stimulation that's that intense. Yeah. So, my suggestion is like, hey, maybe check out amateur porn. Like maybe check out like homemade videos of like real people having real sex. I'm sure now on the internet we've got a lot of sex workers at home who are practicing physical distancing, and they might have services on as a cam girl, or like a couple cam session, right? So it's like, how can we don't have to go cold turkey. There's like no shame here. Of course you want to watch porn. Porn is great. It's so entertaining. It's great. And we want to watch just like
it's riveting.
It is. You're like, how does that even happen? Wow. It's amazing. And just like we want to watch like all the like Beyonce's like sexiest like music video, right? It's so entertaining. It's so flashy. Look at all the lights. We want to watch the epic videos. And how do we also remember that these people, when they're not wearing makeup, they look just like us. And that they also need to get up and have morning breath, and they need to go brush their teeth. Like, how do we remember the human condition that we're all in?
It's so powerful. And I think that like with people, it's just, why are we using it? I think that's another big thing, is like, why would we use the thing? Because some people use it to just like either numb out of like whatever they're not wanting to experience in their reality, or just to like feel something because they feel so numb in their reality. And I think it's like really being aware of like, why are we doing it? And also like what you're saying about the stimulation and having it be so intense. Like I watched a lot of porn growing up, right? And I'm grateful for that in some ways, and in other ways I'm like, maybe a little less time, watching it probably would have been cool. But to be able to like monitor my sensitivity to sexual stimulation, to physical body parts, to what it means to be beautiful and like beautiful human beings. I think that's the place where like for me it like didn't serve as much, is because like if I would have chosen to create my own like use my own imagination, for example, versus like taking the easy way out, like 5-10 minutes, just wanting a quick instant gratification to feel good about myself when in a lot of areas of my life I didn't feel good. I felt insecure, I felt unworthy, like all this stuff came up. I think that just would have been a more effective, healthy approach. And like I said, I think there's great aspects of porn, and I also think it's like, why and in what moderation, and what's our relationship to it?
Yes. It's like a cheap donut, It's delicious. It's like, I mean, they also have expensive donuts, but like the combination of like sugar to fat to salt to carbs, oh boy, and sometimes you want a donut. There's absolutely nothing nutritional about it. But you have a little mini mouthgasm when you bite into it, and it's delicious. And then afterwards you hate yourself because you had a dozen of them, So just like we get to make choices that add to our physical health and our food intake, just like we get to choose to exercise, 3 times a week or every day, whether it's 10 to 20 minutes, just like we get to upgrade our self-talk and our internal dialogue, how we relate with each other. There's a whole area we get to explore when it comes to our own sexuality. The fact that the porn industry is like $1 billion industry goes to show that there's no other space for healthy sexuality to exist. For porn to even become an addiction, or for it to even be a problem or an issue in society, goes to show that sexuality has been so shamed and so shunned that parents can't even talk about it with their children without turning bright red. So it's like,
this is good. I feel like we've covered a lot of kind of unpacking, and I want to give people some strategies on being a pussy whisperer. Ria, how do we How do we own? Well, not.
Yes.
I don't know if it's owning someone else's pussy. I don't know terminology. I'm still unfamiliar with it. But how do we step into that role?
Great. Well, I have a little visual for those of us watching.
Yes,
This is a little beautiful pussy pillow.
I love it.
Yes. Well, so how do we become a pussy whisperer? So what I'd love to invite us in is just like we did the four centers,
Mhm.
the mind, the heart, the gut, and the genitals, right? It's going to be a meditation where uh if you notice all the openings in the body, like the eye, the nostril, the ears, the mouth,
Mhm.
all the openings have a similar almond shape.
Wow, wow, mind blown.
Yes, even like the tip of the cock, right?
Yeah,
It's also the similar shape.
yeah.
So what if in our mind's eye we can picture a yoni or a pussy in our third eye?
Mm.
And so like, who do we get to be energetically to invite um a level of penetration? How can we allow ideas, inspiration to penetrate us in our third eye pussy? So breathe that in. And maybe our third eye isn't open to that. That's okay too. Maybe she's not warmed up enough.
Mm.
And now picture the heart as a pussy, right? And just imagine like, the for the heart to open, it's like what does the heart need, the heart pussy need to be titillated and juicy, to open, right? And how can we allow love to penetrate us? How can we allow other people's hearts to penetrate us? So breathe that in. Nice. And so the stomach or the gut, just allowing this whole belly to be a really juicy, meaty pussy. And what does she need? Or the belly button, right? Like if you think of the shape of the belly button and how this is the part of us that used to be connected in an umbilical cord where we would get nourished. What would feel most nourishing in our bellies and our gut? And how can we allow nourishment to penetrate us in our pussies? And so breathing that in, allowing that to digest. And now the genitals. So for pussy owners, we have an actual physical imprint of what it's like to be a pussy owner. And for, my male bodied viewers and listeners, you have an energetic pussy. And what if you just gave yourself permission to feel your energetic pussy in your genitals? And what does she need to feel honored and respected and appreciated and revered? She is the goddess. She is a temple, the real altar. We bow down and pray to these statues of like Kuan Yin and Buddha and Jesus on crosses. Like, what if the real altar is between your legs?
Wow.
And so, like in your mind's eye, to really eye gaze with your own genital pussy.
Dang. This is so powerful because like so for me, I think a lot of people it's so foreign to imagine like for example a body part on another body part that it's on the other side of
Yes.
your body. It's like why would I put a pussy on my third eye? But
Yes.
like in the energetic embodiment and the meaning and the significance of it and the portal like aspect of it, like it's genius.
Yes. Yes. It's exactly what it is. It's a portal.
Mm.
It's a yoniverse.
Universe.
Yes. So in Sanskrit, vagina means yoni, which is like a temple of light. And the lingam, which is Sanskrit for cock, is a wand of light.
Wow.
And so, you know, we fetishize these things. I actually have another visual. It's a little cock keychain for those viewers on a slinky. Love it so much. You know, I get to be a kid again. It's like amazing. We were all interested in our cocks and pussies as kids, you know, and we were told, don't do that. Or, you know, for like maybe a little more conscious parents, they're like, okay, you can do that, but in your own room in private. Right. But for most of us, like, don't do that. Don't touch. Oh my goodness. But we're so curious. We're so interested. And just like you said it, Chris, it's like, you know, if you've been with a woman or you are a woman, what it's like, that sense of relaxation and calm when you get to enter a pussy, like, oh, I mean, that's healing. And imagine that in your third eye as like getting great ideas, wanting innovation. How can that penetrate me if I open up my third eye portal and receive?
So powerful. Ria, this is like just the tip of the iceberg, or the cock, or whatever we want to talk about. Or just barely entering into the pussy. And there's so much deeper to go. And I want to let our audience know how they can connect with you, and specifically, like, how can you support them in creating transformation around sex in their own lives?
Absolutely. This is like my favorite subject. I'm a total geek when it comes to sex. So please reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, Ria Yoshida. The handle's like facebook.com/sexcoach Ria Yoshida, RIAYOSHIDA. Yoshida actually means lucky rice field in Japanese.
Wow.
Very appropriate. And I'm offering, you know, like free sexual breakthrough calls, 30 minutes. Let's hop on the phone. You know, I would feel honored if you told me your biggest, deepest sexual challenge, and I would be happy to support you. Because just like you said in my intro, world peace, one happy genital at a time. Like, what people don't realize is if you're having really good sex at home, you're going to spread that good energy in the rest of your life. And if all the leaders in all the countries and all the worlds were well fucked, we would have world peace.
Yes. One thing I want to share about this, and especially this offer an opportunity for people to connect with you. I love coaching. I love that mindset coaches, business coaches, life coaches, they offer like strategy sessions, breakthrough sessions. Awesome. I love it. I don't think the impact of those strategy sessions, you know, some of them could be like transformational. I get that. But most are just like, okay, let's just talk about who you are, where you're at, what your challenges are. I imagine that a sexual breakthrough call around sex is like so freeing simply just to talk about it, because it's so oftentimes repressed. And I think just the value of jumping on a call with you, Ria, and the safe space that you provide for someone to just share like what is going on and what they've been carrying that they haven't been able to tell to anyone. And know that like you're just there with so much love to hold them. I think is just, you know, so freaking valuable. So I really want to remind everyone who's in the audience, like, if you have an opportunity to talk to Ria, like, do it. Schedule a call. If you've been carrying something for a while, schedule a call. If you feel like, well, you know, I don't even know if I want a sexual breakthrough, schedule a call, because like chances are getting into a conversation with you, Ria, it's gonna transform them in one shape or form, or it is just, I imagine it's transformational.
Yes, thank you for that. Welcome it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So everyone, go to riayoshida.com. Ria, thank you for opening up this portal with us here today and letting us come inside and go on the journey with you. You are a superstar. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, beloved. So much love.
I'll see you soon, okay?
Yes.
All right, take care.